Do you want to squat like this? But instead, you're stuck squatting like this? Then you have to stick around for the rest of today's video, because we're going over my 4 favorite accessory movements that's going to blow your squat up and help you add a ton of weight to the bar. Any number of things could be holding you back. Technique, programming, especially your accessory movements. If you're wasting time in the gym doing accessory movements that are not going to benefit you the most, then you're never going to build that squat up. So today we're going to go over my 4 favorite. Let's get to it. Exercise number 1 is a combination of exercises. Sue me, this is my video. I can do what I want. So we're talking specifically about the leg press or the hack squat, because I find that they're very similar in terms of your quad activation. Now, it stands to reason that good quad development is going to carry over to a good squat, especially if you are squatting in a high bar dominant stance. So, if we're not working the quads by overloading them in a heavy manner on a leg press or on a hack squat, we're leaving gains on the table. Now, the great thing about the leg press, as opposed to just doing numerous reps of high bar squats, is that it's very easy and safe to fail on. And we know, based on programming, sometimes we've got to push ourselves 1 rep, 2 reps, even all the way to failure. Employ the leg press with a moderate to high intensity weight that you can handle with proper technique, but really push yourself. Get to that 1 rep reserve, 2 reps reserve, even failures every now and again, and that's really going to help blow up your quads. If you do end up failing, no harm, no foul. You hit the bottom of the machine, you're good. The only thing you walk away with is a bruised ego. As opposed to, if you're pushing yourself on high bar squats, you may fail a little bit unsafely for you and the people around you in the gym. Now, in terms of programming the leg press or the hack squat, I love to use this as a hypertrophy movement, more in the 12 to 20 rep range, because we are trying to grow those quads as massive as we can. And because we are trying to push ourselves as safely as possible, we can push to 3 reps in reserve, 2 reps in reserve, even the dreaded 1 rep in reserve, folks. We can really go hard because nothing's going to happen to us if we fail. I guarantee if you're employing a hack squat or a leg press properly, your quads are going to blow up and your squat total will thank you. But there's another section of the squat that we really need to focus on, and that is the glutes. So our next exercise, we're gonna focus on that. All right, the quads are toast. The glutes are up next, and the glutes play an important role in the squat, especially if you are a low bar stance squatter. You need strong glutes at lockout, you need strong glutes out of the hole. So, my next exercise is the barbell hip thrust. I know what you're saying. I don't like doing these. I look ridiculous. Who freaking cares? When you carry over to a massive total in the squat, nobody's gonna be saying that you looked ridiculous doing barbell hip thrusts, right? So get over it. Do what you need to do to get that total up. Now, I love utilizing this exercise in a strength context between the 3 to 6 rep range, maybe even 8 sometimes, but really overloading the weight. Now, this exercise can definitely be used in a hypertrophy context. Push 15, 20 reps with lower weight, whatever you want to do. But for me personally, I love the overloading aspect of the barbell hip thrust. I find it has a great carryover to my low bar squat. As a low bar squatter, getting those glutes firing with heavy weight through a very similar type of movement as a low bar squat helps me a bunch. Now, we need intelligent programming when employing this exercise, obviously. If we're going for maximal loads on the squat, doing maximal heavy loads on the hip thrust the same day is probably not going to net you the most benefit. Your fatigue level will be way too high. You won't be able to properly overload. So if you want to combine these exercises on a training day, I would recommend maximal loads on the squat, sub-maximal loads, higher reps on the hip thrust, or vice versa, depending on what your training needs are. We need to employ these exercises intelligently. One quick tip on the hip thrust. It's very difficult to get into position, especially using a barbell hip thrust, trying to roll the weight onto your back. Weights are falling off each side. It sucks. Put a couple weights down next to you that you can roll the weight on top of, slide your legs underneath, then get into position, and you're good to go. Plus, having the weights down there will give you a stopping point where you know that you are hitting proper depth on the movement. So try that out the next time you get into it. Let's move on to our third exercise, shall we? So we're moving to a movement pattern more so than one specific exercise. Like I said, it's my video, I can do what I want. Unilateral leg work can pay massive dividends, especially if you're first starting out, but even very advanced lifters can gain some benefits from these techniques. Lunges, Bulgarian split squats, single leg press. We need to utilize these types of movements with one leg at a time to root out imbalances and also help us work on stabilization and balance during the squat. Now, as great as these movements are for hypertrophy, the real bang for your buck comes in stabilizing and balance. If you have to load one leg at a time, especially standing movements like the Bulgarian split squat and the lunge, it is going to have direct carryover to when you've got maximal load on your back and you have to stabilize your way out of the rack. Stabilize before you go for the squat. Stabilize in the hole. Stability all over the place, man. It is an excellent technique to increase balance, increase stability. Trust me, when you're going for those maximal loads, the last thing that you want to think about is, I feel a little off balance here. No, you need to focus on hitting the hole hard and bouncing right back up. Balance has to be an afterthought. It has to be muscle memory. So utilize these techniques to build that muscle memory. Now, these exercises have a lower systemic cost of recovery, right? So you can use them in a higher rep range, 15, 20, 25, especially if you're not loading super heavy weight. Grabbing a couple 15-pound dumbbells and going for walking lunges all up and down the gym is a perfect way to increase hypertrophy in the quads, hypertrophy in the glutes, but most importantly, balance, right? Staying as upright as you can, focusing on engaging the core, utilizing all of the techniques and tools that you need on the squat, carrying over into your unilateral work, and they'll start building on each other, baby. That's the goal of training. I would emphasize to you to remove some of your ego. If your goal is balance and stability, why would you try and overload 85 pounds in each hand doing some Bulgarian split squats, falling all over the place? Pull some weight off. 35 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever is appropriate for you that you can do in a 15 to 20 rep range, focusing on balance, proper bracing, proper technique. These are the tools that we need to employ. Get your ego out of it. Your ego can come back when you're putting on 405 to 500 pounds on the squat and making everybody watch. We have reached our fourth and final exercise, and it is the most specific of the bunch because, as a great coach once told me, if you want to get better at squatting, brother, you better squat. So we're talking about the tempo squat. Now, I'm including pause squats in this because I feel that that is also part of the tempo family. A tempo squat is when you manipulate the descent, the pause at the bottom, or the ascent of the squat. So if you're doing a 5-0-0 tempo, it's a 5-second descent, 0 pause at the bottom, and a 0-second ascent, right? That's just how it's written out if you're ever reading a program and it has something like that. The tempo squat is so powerful because it forces you to slow down, especially at your weaker portions of the lift. Got a weak upper back that you're rounding, you're losing position as you descend? Well, guess what? Take some weight off and slow that bad boy down. Focus on staying as rigid as you can in the upper back, holding on to tension from the top all the way down to the pause, and then holding tension on the way back up. It will pay massive dividends when you get to switch back to a normal tempo. Your upper back will be as rigid as when you were doing your tempo squat. Are your hips bouncing way too early out of the hole? Well, guess what? Pause down there. Hold it. 2, 3 seconds. Allow yourself to focus on moving as a unit out of the hole, chest and hips at the same time, rising. That will help ingrain the movement pattern to when you are allowed to go back to a normal tempo. You can just hit the squat, bounce right back up. I really love to employ the tempo squat right after my set of squats for the day. I'm right there in the rack, I can strip some weight off of the bar, and we can focus in on a little bit of technique issue. If I've noticed that I'm having issues in the hole or having issues in the descent, I can employ that specific tempo to solve those problems. Folks, if you use these 4 exercises, I guarantee your squat will increase. And if you want to learn more about how to program them, you can click on this playlist right here. Until next time, get strong, stay strong. Peace.